Right now at Honda, find your kind of value with a low finance rate offer on selected Civic hatch and sedan models. There's never been a better time to get into a Civic, so talk to your local dealer and let's help you into a Honda today. T's and C's apply. Ends August 31st. See website for details.
You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Batuta Advocate, on Desert Rock FM.
Hello listeners, welcome back to Desert Rock FM with Clancy and Errol from the Batuta Advocate. If you're listening from lesser places, we're up to episode number 6 from our new podcast, coming out of the Koala Studios in downtown Batuta.
Yes, hello everyone, thanks for tuning in. You're here with myself, Clancy Overall, a man with media pedigree stretching back generations in the Diamantina Shire, and of course editor-at-large of the Batuta Advocate, Errol Parker. Coming up this week, we're having a chat with prominent actor, playwright, and notable current affairs show panellist who's in town this week, Nakkiah Lilley. But before we get there, what's been happening this week in the world, Errol?
Well, the Commonwealth Games are trying their hardest to stay in the headlines, Clancy. And forget all those boring, heartwarming stories about the medals and all that bullshit. There's been a few athletes go missing from the Games. They've gone AWOL.
Yeah, that's the true headline. A few athletes from some of the African nations have decided to go and explore the glitter strip without telling anyone, and no one in the mainstream media seems to know where they are. But we've managed to track a few of these missing athletes down, haven't we?
Yes, we have. We've chased them from down south. We have exclusively revealed where some of them have ended up.
What was the headline on that scoop?
Ipswich Jets refuse to explain where their new Cameroonian backline came from. Despite the Jets training behind closed doors earlier this week, the Advocate can exclusively reveal that the iconic Queensland Rugby League team has a completely revamped backline.
It's a new try-scoring operation with a distinctly African flavour now that all 5 backline positions are occupied with Cameroonian nationals, whose names have been kept from us. The Jets have refused to publicly comment on the influx of new overseas talent, but sources inside the organisation have confirmed that the coaches are over the moon with the recent recruitment drive. And actually, one of the coaches of the Jets, Ben Walker, who steers the ship with his brother Shane, dropped a comment on that story, informing us that training and home games have been moved to the Cameroonian embassy. So if any of the Jets family are listening in, make sure you take note of that.
Yeah, good on them, I say. Despite the fact that the Cameroonian embassy is based in Canberra, we do wish the boys from Ippy the best of luck. I mean, we have seen firsthand up here, Clancy, with the Batuta Dolphins, what a bit of brown paper bag money and some free accommodation can do to a football team. Ever since we brought up those blokes from Logan, the mighty Dolphins have been humming, and the town's been buzzing too.
The performance of small town rugby league teams does in fact have a ripple effect on the community, but I don't know how long the Jets are going to be able to hold out. I mean, Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton has surely got to get a sniff of this soon, and when he does, I reckon he might come after the Jets.
Well, we hope for the good people of Ipswich that he doesn't. Anyway, we broke another Com Games-related story this week about the hosts of Channel 7's Sunrise programs requesting that the Aboriginal protesters spare a thought for the white children trying to enjoy the Commonwealth Games.
Yes, the headline on that one we ran was, Sunrise says, please think of the white children trying to enjoy their holiday before protesting again. The popular breakfast television program Sunrise were the victim of targeted and angry protests this week on the Gold Coast, to the point where the hosts had to address the situation.
The hosts of the show, David Koch and Samantha Armitage, they were barely audible above the chants and general rabble of the protesters, which forced them to tackle the elephant in the room. Koshi said, "We love that people are able to protest their views in Australia. It is a pillar of our democracy." But then he digressed and said, but the tone of the chanting is becoming increasingly hostile and some of the language is becoming offensive. He said they had a dress-up competition planned for families that day and that there were a lot of white middle-class children there trying to enjoy their holiday. And Koshi did go on to say that the protesters didn't really take that into consideration.
He was quoted saying, and the original kerfuffle about this whole thing was about protecting children, not land rights. So take that, protesters. Anyway, coming up, we have David Campbell and Peter Garrett on to discuss the live export controversy.
Well, Sunrise, they don't do themselves any favours. With all that shit they were popping off earlier this month about the black kids in foster care.
Yeah, lots of that.
They've really been ramping up on those hot button issues. And for the first time since Koshi's joke about Janelle Howard all those years ago, I really think that the public's starting to turn against them, right across the board. Anyway, our guest today is one of those people who have been calling out the bogan breakfast machine, Nakkiah Lilley.
Very honoured to have Nakkiah join us as a guest today. She's behind some of Australia's most loved black comedy, such as ABC's Black Comedy, Black is the New White, and her newest Curitino production, Blackie Blackie Brown. Her writing has been critically acclaimed in both the Murray and Migloo communities, and she's often referred to as Australia's answer to Tina Fey.
I don't think anyone's ever called her that, Clancy, but
Well, you're right, Errol.
maybe you're the first one.
Yeah, you're right. Just me. I didn't really want to follow the Sydney Morning Herald's lead and call her Australia's Lena Dunham because she is far more woke than that. You've seen her on Q&A, The Drum and Women's Weekly, and now she's on the Batuta Advocate podcast. Well, Nakkiah, thank you for joining us today. First question off the bat is, how would you describe yourself occupationally?
That's hard. A writer, or broke, or
Like most people who ride for a living.
yeah, pretty much, just that angry Aboriginal girl who does stuff over different things, I think.
Yeah. Is that something you've learnt people attribute to you occupationally, is like your Aboriginality is brought up, or aside from your talents writing plays and stuff like that, or?
I definitely, it was a thing where when I first started, like a mentor of mine was like, do you feel like you're getting boxed in and you're always going to be that Aboriginal person? And it was like, I'd always get these people, usually older white guys, saying to me, be careful of being boxed in, as if like being known as being an Aboriginal person or having that as part of your work was something that was maybe a disadvantage or perhaps limited you. But for me, I don't know, like it's what I'm really passionate about. It's my identity. It's such a factor in what I have to say. So it's not all of what I do, but I don't want to feel like, I don't ever want to feel like it limits what I do.
Yeah. Do you find, we're talking about a filmmaker that's come into some prominence again this year with two films, Warwick Thornton.
Yeah.
He's able to cast the net and do things all across, the Australian psyche. Do you think there's room for that? Like, maybe you could do a play about Kylie Minogue.
Well, yeah, look, I think there's room. As to whether I should is a different question. Like, do we need another story about an Australian pop star?
Maybe
How's
one
that?
more.
Yeah. We have.
Maybe just one more.
Never
one
tear us
more.
apart by in excess.
Yeah,
And then we're done.
Yeah, then we're done. A good biopic, back to the glory days of who we were.
And then maybe in 10 years we can have one about Delta.
Yeah. I write about a lot of stuff. I do a lot of writers' rooms and all of that type of gear. But, I like it. Like I had a series on ABC comedy called Kicking Kitty, which was about like a talking vagina, and that's done quite well overseas. So that was really nice to be like, oh, they don't know me as just the Aboriginal girl. It's more about the talking vagina girl.
And that vagina doesn't need to be any particular, race or creed.
No,
like
we shouldn't discriminate. Non-binary vaginas, guys.
Non-binary,
about.
racially ambiguous vaginas.
Well, you often hear at writing school, show a story, not tell it, and you should always write what you know. How much of that do you think shines through in your writing?
Yeah, well, I didn't go to... I studied law, and when I was doing law, I fell into writing, and like law's more like kind of, I'll do what I want, fuck you, and prove me wrong, right? Yeah. So I think for me, it's just, I'm not... People so often say, we see our political identities or these things that we describe ourselves as, like Aboriginal, cultural identity, gender, race, sexuality. We see these as these things that kind of limit us. But I think, we... like our difference is our like similarity. Yeah. So I talk about being Aboriginal, but that's just a title. That experience of being Aboriginal and the things I'm talking about, I think, are a lot more universal. And for me, that's why I think I've been able to have a career, is because I do talk about the intimacies and truth of what I feel, but other people feel that too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not that different.
For sure. But also one thing we would say is that writing about something you don't know can be evident, and that's obviously not what you're doing. you're writing about what you know and you've experienced, and it's visible, but it's also shared.
But I'm also really good at writing white guys.
Yeah.
Like, I'm known for that in like black comedy and the things I do. They're like, oh yeah, this is really good. I've had a lot of white guys be like, oh, I love this role.
Yeah,
so I think it's just a question of like question your point of view and perspective, and a lot of people don't do that.
Well, we was talking before. There's a writer that we've met along the traps called Omar Musa, who was writing on
Omar, the Malay Takeaway.
The Malay
The
Takeaway.
Brown Prince.
He was writing on Romper Stomper.
On Romper Stomper.
Yeah.
There's a particular line of dialogue in this new Romper Stomper where Omar, I ran into Omar and I said, mate, there was a line in dialogue that could have only come from you. I knew he was writing on it, where there's about to be a fight at the front of a service station between skinheads and some African dudes. And
you could really tell when it went from being a NIDA script writer to being
Queen Bee and hip hop artist,
a writer from down south, with a bit of experience in the matter.
Yeah, and there was just it was just one particular line where I was like, that's got to be from someone who's a bit closer to the ground,
who's actually heard that line before.
Yeah, so they're out front of this service station, and the skinheads are standing there.
Yeah.
The skinheads are standing there, and they're about to start a fight with some African guys, and then they're winding them up, and the African guys go, "Oh, righto, funny cunt."
Yeah.
and I heard that, and we said that's got to be you, mate. And he said, "Yeah, that was me." It's like,
that was me.
Because everything else you could tell hadn't come from the ground, and I think Omar is the type of guy that's nearly been into a scrap out front of a service station before and knows exactly what to put down into that particular scene. It does shine through when it's not real. Panels, you get put on panels a lot too, and you go on panels. I imagine you sometimes go on yourself.
Do you enjoy being on panels?
Not really.
So how is the process? Say for example, if you ended up on the Q&A panel, you know, how does that start from you being, just having your morning coffee to being, eye to eye with Mr. Tony Eastern Suburbs Jones, with his rounded accent and him pronouncing his G's and
Daddy Jones.
Daddy.
Yeah.
Talking down to you like
Daddy
he is some sort of Christ figure.
Oh, well, the thing about like Tony Jones is it's been he's actually, I've always found him really supportive and lovely, and but
we're just taking cheap shots.
No, you can totally. There's shots to be taken
because he's just another overpaid ABC
lefty employee,
echo chamber,
handbrake on the economy,
puppet off the left.
Here I am paying out the arse on tax
for his wage, guys.
And then there's Tony Jones in his board shorts on a beach in fucking Christ knows where, living it up.
Say Christchurch. That doesn't sound that good.
That would be an ABC place to holiday.
Yeah,
that is where ABC people would holiday, is Christchurch on the beach.
Christchurch on the
I digress. How do you end up on panel shows, just to get back to?
Look, I don't know. It just kind of happened. Like my dad's an academic, my mum's a community worker. For me, I feel really this is getting very serious.
Yep.
But I feel really privileged that I'm able to say something. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my views that I talk about, so I talk a lot about, especially about, Aboriginal affairs and politics. Like, it's nothing new. I've grown up with these ideas. I hear people in my community saying similar things. So really all I have to do is just get on TV and say it.
Yep.
And people say some shitty things, but that's a really small price to pay. And when I look back at, the repercussions that my family have had for their political ideals growing up, like my mum was a fringe dweller. They used to hide from the Aborigines Protection Board. Yep. My grandmother, the same thing. My grandfather, the same thing. It's such a small price to pay for me. But it's just kind of, everyone's always looking for, I think this is a lot with marginal groups, but especially within the Aboriginal, community, a lot of non-Aboriginal people, especially media organisations, always want the next Aboriginal voice. They want this new Aboriginal voice, and they want to be able to cherry pick and display. Yep. And there's a level of, I think, tokenism and racism there, but at the same time, you've got to use that. Yep. The world's the world. You got to use that to your advantage. Yep. And it's doing Q&A, it's scary as shit. It's so scary. I've tried to get out of it before. I told this big lie to I don't even want to say this, to the EP on the last one, which was about the Uluru Statement, because I was like, I don't know what I can add to this conversation, and I just feel like it was a hospital pass. Like, it's such a loaded discussion. I don't know how much I have to offer here. So I was like, I need to get my tooth removed. Like, I can't come do it. But then they were really nice, and they were like, can we help you? And then I was like, I can't keep the lie out. Yeah. But I think, the first Q&A I did, my mum and my best friend were in the audience, and they'd had like a wine or two. So we're like halfway into it, and then I think it was like Greg Sheridan and Erica Bett started saying stuff, and then I looked over at my mum and my friend, and they looked so wild. Yeah. I thought they were going to get up and like slap one of the buggers. Yeah,
that was the Bill Leak cartoon, wasn't
it? Yeah, it was about that stuff.
So you had that feeling like, if it's on, like it's like we've got family here, I've got support here.
And it was like, if I don't say something now, then they're going to get up and get an assault charge. So,
and also you'll think about it forever if you don't say it when you have the platform.
Exactly.
I guess that's the
and I think you get up there, you feel really nervous, and you always do. Like you're on there with politicians who are like paid to basically answer questions, but you kind of think, like, you get up there and it's like, well, if you're going to poke it, you got to fuck it, right? I can't leave the panel like I'm on national TV, so I either say something or I don't. But that was, you just kind of, they just want someone to come up and talk about stuff. And
you get the sweaty palms. They go, Nakkiah, we'll throw this one to you.
Yeah, and I'm not an actor, I act now, but my background is writing, so it's kind of like, well, people hire you because of your perspective. It's a bit different to things like acting and sports, where you have contracts and reputations and teams and productions that have to worry about what you say and what you do, and if you get hired or you get, I don't know, another contract. Whereas for me, it's like, well, fuck it, if I say something that's not quite right, it's not going to have that much of an effect. I'll have people maybe say some things on socials, but you know what, like, fuck them. It's just part of the game, and sometimes it's good when people are talking about you. It means they're engaged, and even if they don't like what you have to say, it's sticking with them. Do you guys get that?
Well, we did get one tweet directed at us, which was, an innate death threat.
An innate what's that?
It was vague. It was a vague death threat.
It's more or less, like, just fucking try and come and kill me.
So you try and kill them?
No.
They said, this is the year we killed them. This is the year I killed them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like you've
it's like the year
thrown
you
down the
to
gauntlet.
Join Fitness First.
It's like, do we wait? It might have been a resolution, but it was like, what do we do? Do we wait? When's it going to be? February, March? When are you going to kill us?
It's like you've thrown down the gauntlet and I've thrown down mine, and I'm going to wait for you to come up here and kill me. Yeah. And if you do, by Jove, I will give you a good context.
And also come to Batuta if you want to kill us. Like, that's I guess.
And we had
you're getting 2017. They were like 2017. They're like, today, like, not this year, not the year. Following as we're running, like, I just not 2018. Now to this.
I'm ready to be a murderer.
Yeah. And then we did have another one saying, calling for our public hanging, and I was like, could you just wait until my parents are busy? I wouldn't really want to see my aging parents, come all the way out to Australia and be like, all right, we're just going to go and watch our son get hanged in the middle of the Simpson Desert. That would
hear ye,
that would really
come
upset
to
them.
The Batuta Advocate public hanging.
And we get communists, and then we also get we get communists a lot, and then we get Liberal Party funded, and then we also got recently centrist cowards, which is kind of the third one you never hear about.
My journalism professor at the University of Hong Kong, he would be very proud that I would just been labelled a centrist coward, because he goes, every single journalist, Errol, should be a centrist coward. You should. The goal of your career is to be liked by everyone you talk to, but simultaneously hated by everyone who reads you. Mm-hmm. Which I think is a good code of ethics for every journalist to follow.
Yeah, it's like ethics above moralism. When you guys first started out, like, I remember reading Batuta Advocate headlines that people thought were really serious, and I would have like a lot of old aunties or like cousins who went in the loop who would post things, and then people would get really wild. Do you still get that, or do people understand now?
We don't necessarily get people who mistake us for satire. We do get people who mistake us for being
centrist cowards.
unashamed regional journalism.
Sorry.
That has no
Stalwarts.
that has no fear or favour. We do get plastered with the S word every now and then by these ABC types, these big city R.M. Williams wearing clip clopping down Park Street, clip clopping down Roma Street,
Vulture Street, mate.
yeah, clip clopping down Roma Street, praying that it rains on their hobby farm at an Esk, it's but until they come out and see that the Diamantina right now is in flood, that it's one of the most beautiful things that they'd ever see, but they don't really want to go any further west than where the McDonald's ends at Charleville and Roma, then bugger them,
Do you get any thirsty regional journalism fans who slide into your
there's-
DMs? Oh, sorry, no, I'm just
No,
curious.
it's good. Keep going.
Yeah.
We've never-
Do you get
Every
any
now and then,
real into the reporting, you centrist.
Yeah,
I like it. It makes me
Centrist cowards.
You centrists.
rings my bell.
It does. I love cowards, Well, we did get a DM the other day, they were asking us if we were going to be going to Beef Week in Rocky.
Yeah, we're going.
Beef Week.
Well, they actually call it.
And we,
they call it Root Week. It is exactly what you imagine. It's just everyone goes to Rocky.
I just imagine people fucking cows, but
that's
not what it is it?
It's a bit of that too.
It's basically like you're donating blood, but you're donating your DNA.
Yeah,
I've heard anyway from all the young folk. All right, well, from one display of bovine excellence to sunrise. So we did have a bit of punching down from Koshi and Sam. They did have two very underqualified people to discuss a very hot topic, and they were both very underqualified to talk about the subject. Should white couples, should white families have the privilege of adopting Aboriginal children from troubled homes? And the reaction, rightly so, was quite negative. But that was lampooned on Tom Ballard's ABC show by you. So is it important to sort of take these really horrible things that people can say about people and repurpose them for comedy? Because comedy is a good sort of vehicle for discussing and exploring these very complex issues in a very approachable way.
Yeah, my grandmother always said to me, what can you do if you can't laugh? And so for me, that's always kind of my impetus for work, is we have to be able to laugh at this stuff, or not laugh at it, but laugh about it, because usually it comes from just such a horrible, ridiculous, nonsensical place. And so the thing with Sunrise for me was that it was just, I'll be really blatant, this is a bit serious, but it was disgusting. You can't get up there and talk about people denying the stolen generation, and it happened. It affected all Aboriginal people. But it was just such a misconstruing the truth, because that's not even the issue at hand when it comes to care and protection. There are issues with care and protection, but is Sunrise as a soundbite the best place for it to be?
Especially
to be
with
discussed?
ex-soccer journalists on
And Prue McSweeney. It was just gross. It was disgusting and it was gross, and there's a certain level of ethics that people, especially our media, need to be accountable to. But in terms of doing the funny stuff about it, you had to laugh because it was hurtful.
It was very
it was
well
so
done,
hurtful.
It was
calling them all cunts.
was
Yeah,
No,
our
it was,
white people cunts.
well, it's-
question mark. There's a question. I'm not
These two
saying
white
anything.
people are cunts.
and
Yeah.
you were using their words against them. You
Well,
know, it was a good way to do it.
Well, funnily enough, so I did the Tonightly with Tom Ballard, and I did that sketch, and it was very funny, and it was making fun of the whole idea of we actually need to intervene on these poor white presenters who are, making asses of themselves, yeah. And then funnily enough, with the black comedy White People Cunt sketch, Nakkiah Gorey, who wrote that, who's one of the writers on the next season 3 of Black Comedy, absolute genius. You guys need to get her. She's great. She wrote that sketch. And so she's written the whole series of them. And I'm, kind of acting them in them, and I script edited and co-produced the show. So, we kind of knew what we were getting ourselves into. But it was so timely. We literally shot it the day after Samantha Armitage and Sunrise had said these things.
So you hadn't, that wasn't triggered?
That was already ready to go. It
really?
was, yeah, well, they have a history of it. It's that thing where it's kind of like, you step around the shit, then eventually you put your foot in it, right? Like, if you shit, you're gonna step in it. Yeah. And so it was really interesting because the response back from, I guess, conservative media was just intense. But the best thing about it was that I think Daily Mail responded, Rita Panihi, I call her Panihi, I don't know how to say her name, responded. I think The Australian wrote this huge thing that was mainly about me. It was like 1,000 words, something called the Mocha. Something like Mocha. It's a nice drink, the Mocha.
Inner city Mocha.
The inner city Mocha. Ironic, coffee. Right? Yeah. It was just, it went to kind of show how transparent their goals are in terms of we just need to make everything divisive and about black versus white, left versus right, to further some very frivolous cause. But it was really funny because the discussions that came from doing these comedy sketches, they were like saying as if we said white people were cunts when it was a question. So I was like, well, it's like if someone cheats, right? They put their own foot in it. It's like, well, you guys are kind of admitting to your cuntness by doing what you're doing. But the best bit was in the with the Wake Up to Yourself, which is the morning show that we have on Black Comedy, where we do the Are White People Cunts. The discussions that happened in the comments was very funny because there were a lot of people who were really upset. But then there were people who were like, they're cool. They're cool. Yeah, I'm white and I think, we might actually be cunts. So it was, it was, I think what I'm proud of with that is that it was able to bring some humour and joy and a relief from actually just how hurtful this conversation can be. Because I think we forget in Australia when it comes to things like race and especially with Aboriginal affairs that colonisation was only 200 years ago. It's really not that far. You go, it's my great-great-grandmother was, that was still, she was removed from her home and had her land taken from her. And that's really not that. I know white people who know their great-great-grandparents. Do you know what I mean? So it's a very volatile, it's a hard thing to discuss, but I think humour at least provides people a relief from how hurtful it is, and then also it creates space, and we need to be able to talk about things. When you start saying we can't talk about it, this is what we can and can't talk about, then that's when I think we run into issues. And
how has the blackfellow community responded to black comedy from the start? Because you've kind of been on the ground where the landscape's changed to the point where there's room and there's resources and there's actual airtime for these yarns and these jokes, which have obviously resonated with so many people. But just how much has it resonated?
Oh, look, the response has been overwhelming with black comedy. It's been so supported by the community, and again, I don't think we say anything too special, and that's why people relate to it, because they're like, oh, I've had these thoughts, I've had these same sentiments. It's just we're able to do it on TV and write it up.
Housewives of Narromine. Housewives of Narromine was a special gag. I have to say, Deborah Malman. Good Mount Isa girl. Mount Isa family.
She is a solid gin. But it's been great. But what's been kind of amazing too is one of the problems we've had since season 1 is all of the prominent white actors, especially male actors, who want to get on the show, and we've kind of had to go. We can't. Has anyone asked if they can play a blackfella? Well, not blackfella, but we've had a lot of people go, make fun of me, put me on the show, right. Corner you at this is a bit name droppy, but corner you at Logie's after party and stuff and be like, I've got this idea for a sketch. So I'm this white guy and really want to be on the show. And so I think
Fucking
it's...
Migloos.
I think it just means that people are able to engage with this stuff because for me, like with writing, one of my key aims when I first started writing and I still think about now is, you know, you need to have people care about us because the Aboriginal community is so often pushed into the fringes or disempowered. These conversations aren't led by us, they're about us. So making people care about our welfare that's actually a bigger obstacle than I think maybe we recognise. And I have a lot of faith. I'm going to cry here. Get a lot of faith in humanity to an extent. I think most people want to be able to engage. And I think saying laugh with us and having something that you can share or kids can go to school and be be proud of instead of getting like arbo jokes every day, which is what I grew up with. I think that's really important.
Now it's what's this then, slut?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well,
look, that's great. But, you know, when you see like little 10-year-old girls, 8-year-old kids. I was with Stephen Oliver in like Redfern one day, and there's a little girl on like a little scooter. Pedals past, steps past, however, scoots past us at the right. Yeah, she scoots past us and she yells out,
"It's a good
what's
verb.
this then, slut?" And Stephen kind of hung his head and he's like, I don't know what I've done.
I've been on a lift with Stephen Oliver in Brisbane, and the doors were closing, and it said, "Doors closing, please stand clear." And he must have been in this lift a few times, and he was ready to go. He goes, "Doo-doo, doors closing. Please stay queer." And put on a pose.
He had an audience. This one is,
I'm sure he thought about it a few times. And I was the audience.
Also, you know, we have this whole thing about comedy punching down, especially with like so many male comedians now coming out as being like super creepy. It's kind of, you know, a lot of my comedy heroes. It's like, oh man, why'd you have to show people your dick? I liked you, but I think it's kind of great being an Aboriginal woman because you kind of can't punch down. Yeah. Like everything is punching up. So it's like, fuck, I can say whatever I want. And that's a really rare position to be in.
And anyone who may be below you is in on the joke anyway. So
yeah, well, you hope so, hey. Yeah.
Well, I suppose you haven't had any calls from Chris Lilley.
Yeah.
He wanted to be on that one?
Has he expressed his interest in being very method on black comedy?
Yeah, well, you know, we...
Really?
I don't know what it's like. Yeah, well, you know what? I think he could take all of our roles. Hey, we might have black comedy, the stage show, played by one man, Chris Lilley. It's anonymous bidder on the rights.
Well, he's always been a man who has indeed marched to the sound of his own drum. But if that's the only drum in the room, you know, that's...
They don't like him in Brisbane, the Tongans anyway.
I think what happened was he was good there for a bit, and I'm kind of a big fan.
Good.
Oh, you reckon? I don't. Yeah, look, I don't want to put myself in hot water, but I don't ever think there's anything that you shouldn't be able to say. Yep. It's just you have to say it smart. Yep. Yeah. And the thing was, he just stopped getting smart.
I honestly think he's a great bowler, and he used to come in and he used to just terrorise people and just take their wickets, and then he used to take that straight to the bank.
I don't follow cricket, but it's kind of making sense.
He would never go after the strongest wolf in the pack. He'd always go after the smallest.
He could have done a good Liberal politician so well, but he instead went...
He could have been a good Liberal...
Yeah, that's it.
Politician
maybe
himself.
He is.
He's got that straight hair, those wide apart eyes, you know, that unathletic
Chris Pine
build.
vibes, yeah.
He is. Sounds like you're describing Caleb.
Caleb, hello. He's listening.
I don't mind him.
What's the go with you and redhead dudes?
Yeah, that's a...
No, I don't.
So you are a magnet to geeky redheads. Is that the go?
I am, hey. Look, I say this. It's my, you know, when people say, if I went for a job interview and they said, you know, what are your positive attributes? Or what are your vices? I'd be like, well, redheads love me. They do. I put it on, I was a bit tipsy. I went to this, the ABC Melbourne Comedy launch or something. I had a few too many Prosecco's and I got home and I was... Anyways, it's a long story. I don't even want to go into it. And then I said that, and then you know what? I had a few thirsty gingers slide into my DMs. I've my 2 previous boyfriends were gingers.
Right.
I don't know. I wonder if it's like an Aboriginal thing. I don't know.
Right. I mean, it could be.
I didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
Great power comes
What
great
about
responsibility.
your nickname Knuckles? Where's that come from?
I don't know. Look, Briggs is like the bane of my life in a lot of ways. He's like my brother, but he shits me to tears. We had a group chat and he just started calling me Knuckles. And that kind of came from the ginger ranger thing.
But he's also the number one insult writer about Nakkiah, apparently.
Yeah, pretty much about me. He nicknamed all of the group chats we were in together. He went in one night, I guess he was bored, and went and renamed them all Knuckles and Friends. So in all of our group chats, every Facebook, iMessages, they're all Knuckles, Insta, Knuckles and Friends. I think it comes from, so my mum was giving my sister and I this talk about, sex one night, and my sister's, we call her like a little Kardashian. Like, she's beautiful, but she's nasty and mean, and I love her, but she's like a little stunner. And so mum was saying, we were in the car one night, and Briggs thought this was hilarious. Mum was saying to my sister, don't let anyone give you the hard word. And then she looked at me and she paused. She's like, and don't you give anyone the hard word? So now he calls me Knuckles because guys have to kind of tap out. And I put the hard word on him. But that's where that all kind of came from. And then he started this rumour about me kissing this kind of well-known redheaded Australian comedian, which isn't true. Didn't happen. But now it's
Is it
just
Tom
fact.
Gleeson?
Luckily, no.
Is it Bill Burr? No.
Now, Nakkiah, he's not Australian.
I wish.
Yeah.
Redhead Bostonian with a little working class homophobia. Yeah, I'm into it.
I got to
Louis
kiss a
CK 's the same
lady.
She said no, but I kept going. That's my Bill Burr impression.
Louis CK, he's a redhead
It's also
Bostonian.
Hillary, yeah.
Yeah, but
We mentioned him earlier.
He might have had
let's
a
swerve
lady in
that.
front of him
He's,
without my consent. But
Yeah, he's in his Weinstein days now.
Yeah. He's done.
He's
Put him
done.
out to pasture.
Yeah.
Mount Druitt girl.
Yes.
Born and bred.
Yep, born and bred in Mount Druitt.
Yep.
Born in Blacktown, bred in Mount Druitt.
Yep.
But Blacktown when it was still like Aboriginal Blacktown, not
Yep.
the new Blacktown.
Sudanese Blacktown.
Yeah.
Yep. Down there at Blacktown PCYC. Savannah Pride. Shout out to the boys. Straight to the college system. That's how you play basketball. Now, we want to ask a question because for people outside of that particular part of the world, which we believe, and you've earlier referred to as the area of Mount Druitt, Blacktown, most Australians sitting at home listening in from all over the place would only really be familiar with Struggle Street, that SBS porn poverty that they published about. What could easily be a nice area. We'd like to know your thoughts growing up there.
Well, I love Mount Druitt.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I never knew I was, I guess, from a poor suburb until I went to uni. And that's when I discovered that Vaucluse and Rose Bay existed. I didn't even know we had an eastern suburbs in Sydney until I started uni. And that's because I went to UNSW Law School. So it's a lot of people from that area. But, for me, Mount Druitt was... I loved it. It's a really tight-knit Aboriginal community out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Aboriginal people there from all over New South Wales because it was a resettlement area.
Right.
So in the 70s, they moved a lot of people, Aboriginal people from missions and from country towns to St Mary's and Mount Druitt to work in Dunheved, which is the industrial area.
Right.
So they used to have about one Aboriginal family per block. It was kind of segregation laws. But that's how my family ended up there. And... for me, it was always, it was really, I loved it. It was really incredibly, I don't want to, sound like a cliche, but incredibly diverse. You could, ride your bike around at night.
Yep.
No, my parents wouldn't really let me do that. But it was a very kind of community-orientated area. And what I still love about it to this day is it's not like keeping up with the Joneses.
Yep.
Everybody's kind of from the same stock in a way. It's not aspirational at all. It's just a place to, you can walk down the street and smile and you can, where I used to catch the train to uni and stuff, it was, the methadone clinic was right next to it, and you'd smile, you'd be your locals, and now like thinking back, there was a few things that were a bit that doesn't happen to like every suburb you realise, but. There were riots. When I was growing up, there was a big kind of racial division between Aboriginal people and different islander groups.
Right.
That's kind of resolved a little bit, or like a huge bit. But for me, it's very different to live in it. And you can go, it's a really poor area. There's a high unemployment rate. A lot of people live under the poverty line. But that's not because of the people. That's because of their opportunity.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, like the bus there, it's a private bus line. And there's just some days they wouldn't go down certain streets.
Yeah.
But people would need to get that bus to get to work, you know, and then they get fired from their job. And it's like still like $10 to get the train into the city. So, for me it was incredibly freeing in a way to grow up, because I never felt like I was being judged there.
For sure.
Makes sense.
And what else are the demographics that you just mentioned to Islanders? What's the demographics like out there? Because it's Sydney as a whole has the largest population of Aboriginal people in Australia. But a lot of Aboriginal people don't grow up in metropolitan areas. So, you're a Koori family growing up around Islanders, and is there a bit of a mix out there, like there often are in urban areas? Yeah,
look, it's super mixed. So Mount Druitt, Western Sydney, like the Mount Druitt, Blacktown metropolitan. I sound like a politician, but they have the highest urban population of Aboriginal people. It's just kind of spread out. But there's, it's a bit more, I think, mixed now. So, like all of my little cousins and stuff have kids with Tongans and can't pronounce their names.
Fafitas out there in Mount Druitt.
Yep. But it is really mixed. I think the Aboriginal experience is very similar to a migrant experience in terms of class. So, I grew up with parents who were like, get an education, go to uni and things like that. And that's, I've had a very, a lot of my friends who I went to school with in high school out there are still my friends to this day, because I've had a very similar journey through life when it comes to education and career.
It actually reminds me a lot of the Flight Path district in South Batuta, actually, and we often report about the area, similar to Mount Druitt and the area. Now,
they don't look at the good things. It's always like the bad.
No,
SBS most definitely. SBS like to have a bit of a... Well, that particular program obviously upset a lot of people when they kind of just... All they showed was people smoking cones for 6 episodes, and it was just like, no, there's a lot more stuff going on. Nakkiah out there.
But see, that's all that these people who don't live in these areas, all these hoity-toities...
These ABC...
who like to believe that where they live and how they live is at least better than someone.
Yeah.
So
people are to blame for their problems.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very the fountainhead, isn't it?
This is why they pay, 35-36%, tax. This is the reason why I'm allowed to be angry. Blah, blah, it's
I pay for these people. The best bit about Struggle Street, though, when that aired, was the gossip around town. Yeah. There's people like going,
who's on it? Who's on it?
And they're telling a bit of a fib, aren't they? Like, there was one black fella on there, and the gossip was about town. The gossip about town was that he actually did have a house. They made it look like he lived in the bush, and he would only go stay in the bush when he got in trouble with his missus. So that was the rumours I heard.
Yeah.
So it was very, I think that was also a kind of a, people just getting really like, you're getting told fibs.
Yeah. Well, look, you've got a following with black comedy around the country. Would you guys ever do a tour? Because you'd sell it.
Look, I don't know. Hey, I think it was on the table at one point.
Because we want you in Batuta.
Well, we would definitely come. I don't know. But, it's a TV show.
Yeah.
We have a lot to thank for editing, I think.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people involved in the team. A lot of people bringing us coffees. Actually, we're really, we're the ABC types between the breaks. We bung on the accent when we're on the show.
You do have a live show on now. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Can you sell it to our audience? Yeah, so
I have a play coming on in Sydney and in Melbourne called Blackie Brown, the Traditional Owner of Death.
Yep.
It's called Chapter Reconciliation or Revenge. And it's a kind of exploitation play about an Aboriginal archaeologist who finds a skull, and it turns out to be the skull of her great-great-great-grandmother. And and then her grandmother comes and tells her the story of how her tribe got murdered in a massacre. And she gets retold this story, and then she swears revenge on all of the descendants of the men who committed the massacre. So the whole play is her going to kill, I did the math, and it turned up at like 400 and something people who were the descendants of these men. And I think the whole play, it's great. It's partly animation. There's 2 actors performing all of the roles. It's a comedy. It sounds really serious, but it's a comedy. And it's all about, I think, how do you move forward? You know, like, how do you move forward as a country when colonialism has, you know, there's a lot of blood on people's hands. I don't know if I'm selling this really well. It's got real dark all of a sudden.
I'm into it. We like it.
You know, there's going to be Andrew Bolt who's going to be using his very calm, Melbourne, concise.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Has he turned the laser on you before?
Yeah, a few times.
Right.
Accent to be like,
yeah, it's great.
well,
I'm like, thank you for knowing my name.
ridiculous?
When he like critiques all of my shows, this is the thing, when people like him critique the shows and they say their piece, they're actually just promoting your show.
Oh,
Yeah.
most definitely.
But we did a sketch on Black Comedy called The Elders in season 2, which Briggsy wrote, and Andrew Bolt liked it. And we kind of had this moment with me and Briggs being like, have we done the right thing? So maybe he'll like it. I don't know. But would you guys ever do a show? Would you do a Batuta Advocate live news show?
Only if Andrew Bolt liked it.
No, actually, we've got some
it
really
was-
cool ideas for black comedy. Maybe you could bring us on there. And
Yeah,
like,
sweet. Behind every black person, there's a smart white man. So is that not the same?
or a
Why
loud,
not just...
or a loudmouth white person.
Yeah, but that's the show. It's great. There's a segue. It's, you know, I'm a massive fan of Quentin Tarantino and a lot of those kind of, you know, exploitation films.
Right. What would you call this? Blaxploitation.
Yeah, it's
AU?
kind of like, yeah, a bit. It's kind of turned into like exploitation and a bit of like futurism.
Right.
Got really inspired by the Black Panther.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But the biggest thing with the show has been I had to kind of, she kills all these people and then she kind of wonders, you know, she kind of realises she's doing what she hates and how do you change the world? And the biggest thing I've had about this play, it's been so hard to write in a way, is that I don't actually know how I would change the world.
Yeah.
Not like, I don't know what comes next, you know, I don't know kind of what kind of hopeful question I have from the laughter. So that's been hard.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. Well, let's
Yeah.
all tune in and watch it.
Yeah,
Blackie
come.
Brown.
Sydney Theatre Company, Malthouse Theatre. I didn't sell it good, did I? I didn't do a
No,
good
no,
elevator
no,
pitch.
no,
If I was talking to
I
a
think you
producer
are.
who's coked off his face, he would have
No,
cut me off a long time ago.
So that is Blackie Brown, commencing 5th of July, presented by the Sydney Theatre Company and Malthouse Theatre. Nakkiah, thank you for joining us today, and thank you everyone for listening to our podcast with Nakkiah Lilley.
And that's it. We're at the top of the hour. We're getting the hurry up from Murray in the booth. We'll talk to you all next week. Please subscribe to the podcast, give it 5 stars, and say hi to your mum for me. I'm Errol Parker. Have a good one.
I'm Clancy Overall. You be kind to each other.
Right now at Honda, find your kind of value with a low finance rate offer on selected Civic hatch and sedan models. There's never been a better time to get into a Civic, so talk to your local dealer and let's help you into a Honda today. T's and C's apply. Ends August 31st. See website for details.